the longest dogfight of the century. 2 hours of survival over Syria. The deafening roar of jet engines reverberates across the skies over Syria as two rival fighter jets engage in an intense aerial battle. What ensues is a thrilling display of aerial strategy and survival as the pilot of one of the jets finds himself trapped in a desperate fight for his life. But the story doesn't end there. It's just begun. For what follows is not your average dogfight. This is a tale of endurance, a test of human will, and an exploration of the uncharted territories of survival in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Buckle up as we delve into the cockpit of this dramatic encounter. But first, let's take a closer look at our pilot, a highly skilled professional who has seen his fair share of action. With years of experience under his belt, he's a veteran of countless missions, each one pushing him to the limit. He's a master of his craft, revered by his peers and feared by his enemies. However, he's about to face a challenge like no other. A test that will push him and his aircraft to the very brink of their capabilities. As the drama unfolds in the skies above Syria, we're transported back in time to the early days of the Syrian civil war. The year is 2012, and the conflict is at its peak, with both sides fiercely fighting for control of the country. Amidst the chaos and bloodshed, there's a glimmer of hope for those caught in the crossfire. A United Nations resolution has been passed, calling for a ceasefire and the delivery of humanitarian aid to those in need. However, the fragile peace is shattered when government forces violate the ceasefire, targeting civilians and relief workers. In response, a coalition of international actors, including Turkey, the United Kingdom, France, and the United States, launches airstrikes against the Syrian army, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the conflict. Against this backdrop of escalating tensions, our pilot takes to the skies in his F-16 fighter jet. His mission is clear: protect the UN relief convoy as it makes its way through Syrian airspace. But as he soars above the clouds, he finds himself in the midst of a fierce battle between government forces and rebel fighters. The situation is dire, and our pilot must navigate through heavy gunfire, narrowly avoiding incoming missiles and rockets. As he weaves and bobs through the chaos, he finds himself locked in a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Syrian Air Force. They're relentless, and their aim is true, determined to take down the intruding aircraft. But our pilot is a master of his craft. He uses every trick in the book to outmaneuver his pursuers, diving and climbing, turning, and banking, all while maintaining a sharp eye on the radar. Just as it seems the danger has passed, the Syrians regroup and launch another wave of attacks. Our pilot finds himself in a desperate battle to stay alive. Then, out of nowhere, an Espanol who appears, adding to the chaos and confusion of the dogfight. But our pilot is not one to be intimidated. He engages the Su-22 in a thrilling aerial duel, firing off missiles that explode in a fiery display of power and precision. Yet despite the intensity of the battle, something is amiss. The Syrian pilots seem strangely reluctant to engage, as if holding back from unleashing their full force. Our pilot can't understand it, but he's too busy trying to survive to dwell on the mystery. As the battle rages on, our pilot finds himself low on ammunition and with a damaged aircraft. He knows he needs help, but the only other friendly aircraft are more than 30 miles away. Just when all hope seems lost, he spots a lone A-10 Warthog approaching. The A-10 is known for its formidable firepower, but it's slow and vulnerable to enemy fire. Despite the risk, our pilot guides the A-10 into position, providing cover as it drops bombs that decimate the Syrian positions. The tide of the battle is turning, but the Syrians are not giving up. They send in wave after wave of fighter jets and attack helicopters, determined to repel the intruders. The sky becomes a blur of missiles and rocket fire, with our pilot at the center of the chaos, amidst the deafening roar of engines and the flash of explosions. But the battle is far from over. He still has to contend with the remaining Syrian fighters, and most importantly, he needs to protect the UN convoy. With renewed determination, he rejoins the fray, engaging the remaining Syrian aircraft in a final showdown. The skies blaze with the fury of fighter jets as our pilot and his allies repel the last of the Syrian attacks. As the smoke clears, he surveys the scene, realizing the magnitude of what they have accomplished. They have secured the safety of the UN convoy and delivered much-needed aid to those in desperate need. In the aftermath of the battle, our pilot reflects on the events that unfolded during the 2 hours. He had faced incredible odds, pitted against a relentless enemy with seemingly unlimited resources, but he had persevered, relying on his skills, courage, and the support of his allies. The victory was not without its cost. His aircraft was damaged, and he had expended almost all of his ammunition. But the sight of the grateful faces of the Syrian civilians as they received the aid convoy filled him with a sense of purpose. He had made a difference in their lives, and that was what mattered most. Now let's turn our attention back to the pilot, as he prepares for what should be a routine mission over Syria. He is tasked with providing air support to ground troops and ensuring the safety of civilians caught in the crossfire. However, as he takes to the skies, he finds himself in the midst of a massive attack by the Syrian Air Force. Government forces are using heavy artillery, tanks, and fighter jets to bombard rebel positions, causing heavy casualties and raising concerns about the safety of innocent civilians. Our pilot wastes no time in diving into action. He maneuvers his F-16 fighter jet with precision, dodging incoming missiles and providing cover for the beleaguered rebel forces. But as he fights to protect those on the ground, he realizes the Syrian Air Force is determined to take him down. He finds himself locked in a desperate game of cat and mouse, pursued relentlessly through the skies by waves of fighter jets and attack helicopters. As the battle rages on, the pilot receives word that the rebels have been forced to retreat, leaving him with no ground forces to protect. He's alone in a sea of hostile fighters, outnumbered and outgunned, but he refuses to give up. He continues to dodge and weave, firing back at his pursuers and hoping for reinforcements to arrive. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, the pilot spots a lone civilian airliner flying towards the conflict zone. He knows he has to act fast. If the plane enters the combat zone, it could be hit by friendly fire or become entangled in the crossfire. With a surge of adrenaline, he veers his aircraft in front of the plane, engaging the Syrian fighters who had locked onto the civilian aircraft as their target. The pilot finds himself in a desperate battle to protect innocent lives. He knows that the safety of the passengers and crew now rests in his hands. As the fighting intensifies, the pilot struggles to keep the civilian plane safe. He maneuvers his fighter jet with precision, dodging incoming fire and creating a protective shield between the plane and the pursuing fighters. But the Syrians are relentless, and soon he's forced to make a crucial decision. He can either continue to protect the plane at the risk of his own life, or break off and let the Syrian fighters take their shot. The tension is palpable as the pilot weighs his options. The lives of hundreds of innocent people hang in the balance. Then, just when it seems the Syrian fighters are about to make their move, a squadron of U.S. fighter jets arrives on the scene. The pilot's heart sinks as he realizes the presence of the U.S. fighters means he must leave the civilian plane unguarded. With a sense of urgency, he radios the crew of the civilian plane, warning them of the danger and instructing them to prepare for a potential emergency landing. But before he can take off, one of the Syrian fighters makes its move. The pilot watches in horror as a missile streaks toward the civilian plane, knowing that time has run out. And here's a bonus fact. Did you know that fighter pilots use special ejection seats that can withstand extreme G-forces? These seats are designed to protect the pilot during an emergency ejection, ensuring their safe survival even at high speeds and altitudes. Stay tuned for more thrilling stories from the world of fighter pilots. Thanks for watching.